I was just writing down some things that kind of came up a few times, just to kind of summarize a little bit what we're hearing, and part of it is figuring out what goes where. But infrastructure, in terms of, you can't possibly read my handwriting, so I'm going to read it to you. Restrooms, electricity, outlets and service, water, Wi-Fi, and then lighting for park paths and edges. Reclaiming streets, shared streets, curbless streets, the idea of promenades, the idea of temporary street closures for events for a number of different streets. Make all spaces really multi-use destinations, and intergenerational, which means accessible. Create defined entrances and gateways to parks, to town, but really looking at entrances and gateways as a really key focal point. Directories, destinations, signage, and of events, kiosks, billboards, electronics, sort of like letting the outside world know, and students know what the destinations here, how to get from one place to another, sort of along the streets, but also within the parks and public spaces. A czar in charge of regular, ongoing, frequent, flexible programming for public spaces. We talked a lot about farmers markets and street festivals and things happening in the streets. This idea of the promenades for DP and Pardell. Movable shaded seating and picnic tables, and there's some really great picnic table designers out there, colorful, made from recycled materials, lightweight, not expensive, really attractive. Recycling and composting. I would like to see public composting. That's just me. But recycling bins around. Having like a food theme. Gardens, more community gardens. Building up the co-op. The health services and public health community. Markets, urban agriculture, sort of this kind of whole food idea. Murals. Talked a lot about murals in different places. Bike parking, bike repair, bike stations, bike tire inflation. And then outdoor entertainment areas. We talked about several, including the amphitheater and other things. So, but stages, music, movies, even flexible platforms that can be moved around. So you don't have to spend $250,000 on a stage, but there are surfaces that you can actually use for different events. And inflatable screens are like $4,000, not even. Things like that. So those were some of the popular ideas that, in no particular order, that kind of were recurring. So there's quite a lot of consistency amongst the ideas. Does anyone have an idea that they want to share that wasn't mentioned for one of the sites that you're thinking about? Okay, so my big question, not to put anyone on the spot, because I wanted to ask other questions later, is who does this information go to? Who should this information go to? Who needs to see it? Who should we be thinking as the audience? I mean, it's a fabulous community archive. Is it part of the CSD documentation? Does it go to the county planners? Just, I know Kim has ideas, but just your thoughts about, because we have, we'd like to share it with everybody, but if you think that there's specific organizations, people, individual institutions that once we pull all this together would benefit from this, just let us.
IVRP.
Who?
IVRP that we
recommend. Okay.
Put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are we going to get a report that compiles a lot of this together, or someone could do that? Is that, I don't know.
Well,
we're going to do part of that.
We're going to do more about sort of recommendations and next steps moving forward, but kind of, we have some summaries, but summarizing all of what happened. It'll be kind of more of an appendix.
Okay.
We've got this fabulous film, which is kind of documenting a whole lot of this.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's...
So to sort of come up, and this would be a great project for students to do. Okay. Yes.
So I was just going to say, follow up from the report is this would be great because we're trying to get an area planning commission through the CSD, and that gives us local planning power. This would be a great kind of study document that says, look, we know how to go, we are invested in this, we really want to do this. It would work. This is why, like, look at all these people who came to this conference and had all these ideas. So this would, I guess, go to the 3rd District Supervisor too, the new one, because they'll be.
So really building off of that, exactly, I think maybe under the APC, I'm just envisioning it would be nice to have a continued group for discussion and consultation along the way that was somewhat formalized and built ongoing relationships with all these different partner government and nonprofit organizations and had representation of all of the different constituents of the neighborhood. And, you know, looking at all of these different projects, there are a lot of similarities, but I think, personally, I think to keep momentum, it's going to take small, dedicated teams by zones, and so therefore it would make sense to have some layers. You have the zoned teams or, you know, individual parks or whatever, then you have a next set that maybe focuses on energy issues, focuses on water issues, focuses on grant acquiring, and then some overarching things for the neighborhood, like what are some ways that we want to handle signage overall? What are some ways that we want to handle lighting overall? You know, neighborhood communication overall, and even link those to the university, which has a lot of the same issues. Like, it sounds like we're going to have a signage plan and procedure now, but even giving an opportunity for IB and UCSB to have some similar and complementary techniques around it.
I just wanted to add that I think it's very important to have it blessed with legitimacy, that this comes out of a process where stakeholders from throughout the community have been involved and have said, yes, this is what we want, and then even to have some priorities so that funding, you know where to start first.
We introduced ourselves, sorry, but we introduced I'm playing the hostess here. We introduced ourselves to everybody this morning, but we have a newcomer, and why don't you just give us a minute and tell everyone who you are?
I'm Joan Hartman. I'm running for 3rd District Supervisor. I'm sorry I'm late. I was here yesterday all day, but I had to be somewhere else this morning. But I didn't want to miss the finish of this. It was so exciting.
Another group that could be added to the list would be the Chancellor's Coordinating Committee on Isla Vista.
I have sort of a branch question too, which is I would like to find the appropriate venue to share this information with business owners and
the Isla Vista Downtown Business Association.
okay, Isla Vista Downtown Business, and then landlords. So whether or not that's through property owners, and not in a way that leaves them scratching their head, but in a way that tells the story and brings them along.
Yeah, I would on the property owners, I mean, meaning not the residents, but the landlord sector. That was a hard one to get in here, right? And business owners, because they're busy. And I think it would be really compelling for them to witness some of this as a, you know, they may change some of their ideas about allowing food trucks on their parking lot or whatever it is, it would be very much an advocacy opportunity to, right? Because they have a lot of control over the properties.
Yeah, I think what I like is, to dovetail off that, is that these visions are so concrete, actually, that when people envision literally what can happen in the space, then I think that brings people along, instead of you just present a somewhat abstract idea. It's like, well, I'm anti-food truck or I'm anti-whatever. So I was going to suggest the art department. Of course, we have a representative here, but in terms of short-term, quick interventions into space, you know, if we can bring in students and we can bring in faculty to do projects sooner rather than later, that's a real big opportunity. Yeah.
I'll make a plug for Ivy Open Lab. It isn't just faculty or students from UCSB, it's anybody. Any community member can join it, and we actually have community members co-facilitating. Rodney Gould, Melissa Cohen from the Food Co-op, IVRPD, Jay Freeman, our local business, myself, but it's sort of co-teach, co-learn. So why don't we all meet on Fridays and keep going on this? But, I'm just saying, like, I know not everybody has that, but it is an open space from 12:30 to 3:30 on Fridays. That maybe we think about using that space where we could get art students in with community, because you know the students need this input, right, as part of their design process. Right?
And I'll just add one more thing, is that I think the students really need to know. The students who aren't here today need to know what we've done, because it's so empowering. But they're obviously a part of this community, and I'm so glad for the students who've given their time yesterday and today. But what I always hear about students is, oh, we're always so busy. We have so many things to do. We don't even have time to think about, you know, how would we change where we live. And Debbie was telling me this, Debbie Fleming. And somehow, I don't want to say that they're not at the table, but in a way we need to bring more of them in. Students that we don't normally talk to, population students we don't normally talk to, and how do we engage them more into this IV planning.
And we'll go ahead. But the other, I'm just trying to clarify what you just said, which is, I was thinking about, could we do organizing around these zones, like the neighbors, the teens, and run some workshops that are actually tied to the place, where everyone's like hanging out at the teen center and thinking about the design of Estero Park and with the neighbors, do you know what I mean? So that it actually addresses the people who live around those zones and use it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very detailed, formal workshop, but if you were to hold an event more as a party and then have a side table or something that says, well, tell us what you think, I think.
Yeah, that's a little bit into one last presentation that we have for you today is a little bit dealing with that.
Yeah.
What can you do with the community? Yes.
No, it's a perfect segue.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue.
But I think, Deanna, you had
so two things. I know you mentioned the Planning Commission for the APC, but also the County Planning Commission, I don't think is up there. Just Third District Supervisor. And I was going to just touch on that. Associated Students is right now going through a strategic planning process about AS's investments in IB. Associated Students invest about $1 million a year in Isla Vista, and that's on the low side, the conservative side of the scale of what those investments are.
Yeah.
So we really are looking at how to maximize those investments. So we are going through a significant kind of process, including surveying. So this kind of data will be great to share with our student leadership and student body at large.
Sure. Perfect.
That was the Associated Student Investment.
Yes, in Isla Vista.
And you had something back there?
somebody back here?
Yes.
I was impressed that your firm has been engaged by a large airline company that wants to improve places. So what is the equivalent here? What group would love to help us improve Isla Vista? Is it the oil companies, or is it somebody we could go to and ask for?
Well, large gyms are always.
Is it Oprah?
Large gyms are always a partner. Nike wants to sell something to this young population. Yeah, they're depending on where. Yeah, gymnasiums could be a partner for outdoor classes and whatnot if they're trying to sell people something. That could be a corporate partner. Healthy juice companies, pressed juice, cold pressed juice, and all that. Healthy food industry can be a draw. You can always. Or sometimes I know, and this generates all sorts of good and bad feelings, but something like Whole Foods, you already have a co-op, but some kind of vendor who wanted to promote health and sustainable living.
We also could go back to the Santa Barbara Foundation.
Hey.
Yeah.
You put in a good word for us.
Existing channels of funding should always be your first, set of backups. They've given you money once,
Yeah, and Sharon was here all day, as was Lisa and the people from Santa Maria. I think we impressed them.
Also, from an arts programming perspective, the County Arts Commission or County Arts Council and the Museum of Contemporary Art is definitely interested in supporting IB.
And combined with that, looking at Prestige
Yes,
and art places.
yes.
Yeah,
There are
local
some big art
partners,
grants.
then
Yeah.
art foundations are always, Prestige is a very positive place.
Yeah, I did apply for an art place for this. I think we weren't ready. I think we're getting closer to that.
And this should be, like, this report out, based on what we give you and based on what all the things that you add on to it, should be a good set of application materials for the big fish, kind of.
Plus, we're already working with the NEA, and we know Jennifer and Jason really well. So they're a good
So, but isn't there the Food Action Network? There's somebody from there. Isn't it called the Food Action Network? The Food Action Commission. She was here yesterday.
Jenny?
Katie?
She's from the food bank.
Katie
Jenny's
Maynard, Office of Sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of student support. I mean,
So there's a big community, all Santa Barbara County Food Action Coalition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I think the Santa Barbara Foundation is spearheading that.
And Fund for
If I
Santa
remember
Barbara.
what she told me, yeah. Fund for Santa Barbara, yeah.
Fund for Santa Barbara, we have an approach for some strategic, I mean, that's actually probably a good next step too. They fund, how do they put it? Grassroots, kind of.
Change, not charity.
Yeah, change, not charity.
Yeah, thank you.
And they have a lot of strong connections to help us with the next steps.
Does UCSB have a foundation?
Yes.
UCSB Foundation.
Sue and I were just talking that they have trustees for the UCSB Foundation who lived in IB at some point and care a lot about IB and who have a lot of money.
Made it all study.
Yeah, and I will say that the jazz series was funded by someone, an alumnus is funding the musicians.
I would jump into, I know we worked on students already, but I'd put an asterisk next to them, because if you look at everything we have listed, I think we also have a diversity of student organizations under that I don't think we should go into right now, but just asterisk that. Then including Creek Life, includes SBC, UTC, and associated students and all that. And the other thing I think is a possible partner action item is translating this into Spanish and making sure that we connect to our Spanish language first families.
And not underestimating parents, because I think there are a lot of large parent organizations as well, like Padres Unidos and Padres Alumnos, who would be interested in knowing what we've talked about and like their powers for advocacy and sort of activism. I mean, there's strong groups as well.
Exactly.
The principal of Ivy School.
Were alumni mentioned already? Rich alumni? A lot of rich alumni.
Yeah, you should get into the alumni newsletter and media.
Oh yeah,
that
giving
was,
back I just wanted to talk a minute about that. I did send out to Independent, News Hawk, and I no one came.
Yeah,
so I just
well.
want to say that was kind of disappointing, but yeah. So if somebody could do that, or we have an inroad.
If the Daily Nexus could even do a feature, I think it would be useful.
I noticed. So I'm just wondering, since we have the group here, would we be willing to meet again to present some of our concept? I don't know. I'm just saying, like as a next, like to present
like
to
a
some
report
people.
back kind of thing.
I mean, this wonderful video that Andrew's doing, is this something you're going to edit?
Yeah, so Jay is going to go through all of this footage, and you provided him with the PowerPoint slides, so he'll do what he did with the CSD financial feasibility study, where he like overlays the slides on the video and like edits
we
it
haven't
over.
given him yet, but we will.
Cool.
Yeah, we
And
haven't.
then, so it'll.
But is there any way you could just do like a 45-minute version?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really? I mean, is it?
I'll work on
I mean, the notes are great, but like even having you all on camera talking about who the partnership is extremely powerful, especially if I'm one of those people that, like, oh my God, they're talking right to me. So I think this is another. I mean, I think you all should definitely still meet, but this might be the thing that you take to the Downtown Business Association. You're not going to rock. Would love you to walk around with your banners and your flip charts and your stickies. That'd be great. And they're not going to make you read a report. They'll be fabulous. So this video might be a very helpful tool. Social media, YouTube, it'll go viral.
Yeah, because all people want to see is public workshops.
I didn't mean to tell you both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was somebody? Did I cut anyone off? Was there somebody else who had another idea?
I just had kind of a clarifying question, because I see that you have up here for the Partners for Implementation, and I do think some of this discussion has been pre-implementation.
Right.
Who else needs to be at the table? Or
Right.
who else needs to have this information shared with them? And
Yes, that's really what this is. This is not really implementation. It's sort of who can help us, who needs to see this. Then I had another one, sort of who's not at the table, but I didn't want to say who's not at the table. I wanted to say sort of who can help us, who should see this. That was my way of saying who's not who's not here, who should have been here. Because you taught me. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I will type this up and
Yeah.
get it to you. All right.